All right, so chapter 7 is split into two halves. And if you look on Canvas, she's already put up the button for 7 with the schedule, the test date. I cannot remember when our next test is, but you will have a blank unit circle attached to it. You might want to lock in. Can't do two things at one time. So let's take out our earbuds. Let's lock in. This is a short class. Not long. It's really, really short. So take out your unit circles because you will need them. So inverse asks a different question, okay? If you look at your chapter 6 quiz and test, we gave you an angle and asked you what sine or cosine was. But for an inverse is backwards. Whenever we do an inverse, you are given the answer, and you have to provide the angle. That's the difference. So in the past, we would say, what's the cosine of pi over 2? And then you would tell us what the cosine of pi over 2 was. But now we're going to give you the answer, and you have to tell us what angle has that answer. So I'll give you a minute to copy this all down.
I was going to ask, you said you want us to write the graph?
Ms. Ryan, do we draw the graph too?
Oh, you don't have to draw the graph. I'm just going to emphasize, I mean, you can, but I'm going to emphasize a part of the graph, but you don't need the graph. I was looking for my unit circle, but that's okay. That's okay. So who remembers horizontal and vertical line tests? All right, that's how you can tell if a function is one-to-one. And when we have our sine, if we look at our sine and cosine graph, it is not one-to-one because it fails the horizontal line test. It'll pass a vertical line test because it's a function. But if I draw a horizontal line like this, do you see how that horizontal line crosses it more than one time? So because of that, we need to take only a piece of the sine wave. And the piece that we're going to emphasize is between here and here. That little piece, okay? Because if you look at this little piece of the sine wave from here to here, can you see how that piece is a function and it's also one-to-one? All right. So what I need for you to write, first of all, is how do you know it's an inverse question? Two things. First thing is that little -1. So if you see a -1, that means inverse. If you go back to Algebra 2, I don't know if you remember learning inverse notation. Does that sound familiar where we put the little -1? Okay. So it's the same thing with trig. If we put a little -1, that means inverse. It can also be written as just arc, the word arc sine. So arc sine means inverse also. I'm trying to get used to this, my little bootleg Apple Pen, but I still like this one better. So arc sine. So it could also be arc sine -1.
Oh, it'll say arc sine.
Mm-hmm. Both of those mean inverse. Okay, so your domain, because we're only taking a piece of the wave, know that all of your answers should be between -pi/2 and +pi/2. So all of your answers, if you're giving me a sine, an inverse sine or inverse cosine, because if you look at this little piece of the wave that I've cut off, this boundary line is -pi/2. This boundary line is +pi/2. So all of your answers should fall between -pi/2 and +pi/2. What quadrants do you think that would be on? If you look at your unit circle, what two quadrants would be negative pi over 2 and positive pi over 2. Because there's only 2 quadrants that we're looking in. 1 and 4. So can you write that? Quadrants 1 and 4. That's where we're going to look at to answer the next 6 questions. Oh, thank you. So I'm going to give you 6 questions for you to do. Wait. Oh, something for you? Oh, okay. So I'm going to give you 6 questions to do. And that's it. All right. So go ahead and copy this down. Let me go ahead and fix this. Again, I was trying to work with that little, but it's kind of harder to write with. Okay. So I'm going to give you a second. I added 3 more. I just felt like we needed a couple more than just 3. And I'm going to give you a small illustration here. Because just like Anna said, we're only looking in quadrants 1 and 4. So this is my quadrants 1 and 4. These are the angles in quadrants 1 and 4. This would be positive pi over 6. This would be pi over 4. This would be pi over 3. And then we'll talk about the second half. So what I'm asking you for when you do an inverse is, and don't say it out loud, I want everybody to just kind of think about it. This is the answer, and I want the angle. So what angle on the unit circle has a sine value of positive 1? This is what this question is saying. This is asking you when you're looking at an inverse, what angle has a sine value of positive 1? Don't say it out loud. Just look at your unit circle. See if you can figure out what angle has a sine value of positive 1. Thumbs up when you think you know the angle. All right. Who wants to tell me what they would write? Anybody?
Wait.
Anna? 90 degrees. But how would we write that in radians? Because everything we do is in radians. So how do you write 90 degrees in radians? Pi over 2. That would be your answer. If you look at pi over 2, the angle pi over 2 has a sine value of positive 1. All right, go ahead and look at your unit circle. Number 2 is asking you what angle has a sine value of positive 1/2. Now we know that we're in quadrant 1 because all of these answers are positive. So we're looking in Q1 for all of these. So what angle, somebody besides Anna, what angle has a sine value of positive 1/2? David? What'd you say? 3 or pi over 3?
You said 30.
You said angle?
Oh, you said 30. Okay, 30 degrees. Okay, and how would you write that in radians? Pi over 6. Sorry, thank you. I think I'm going deaf. All your answers have to be in radians, by the way. So make sure that you write it in radians. But that is correct. 30 degrees, pi over 6. All right, somebody else. What angle has a sine value of root 2 over 2? Hottie. Pi over 4. Any questions about those first 3? All right, so copy down these next 3 if you haven't already. These are where it gets a little tricky, and this is why I want to talk about this one. So I added these. I know Tamaya, you have her notes, but I added 4, 5, and 6, so you might want to write those in. Now keep in mind that your answers have to fall between negative pi over 2 and positive pi over 2. That's what your angles have to fall between. So this is why this is a little tricky, because now I'm moving down to quadrant 4. Okay? So we know that the angle that has a sine value of negative root 3 over 2 is 5 pi over 3. But that's not in this range. Okay? So just remember that you can rewrite these as negative angles, and it's just a reflection over the x-axis. So 11 pi over 6 is the same thing as negative pi over 6. And 7 pi over 4, because if you take 7 pi over 4 and you subtract 2 pi, that's the same as negative pi over 4. And 5 pi over 3, if you take 5 pi over 3 and you subtract 6 pi over 3, that's a negative pi over 3. So when you're giving me answers in quadrant 4, these are how you have to present that answer. Okay? So the angle in quadrant 4 that has a sine value of negative root 3 over 2 is 5 pi over 3, but the answer we're looking for when you take your test is negative pi thirds. All right, take a minute and see if you can figure out what the correct answer would be for number 5. So what angle has a sine value of negative root 2 over 2? Any guesses on what you would write? Jaden. I know I got 2 Jadens, but negative pi over 4. Raise your hand if you have that answer. All right, lastly, what angle has a sine value of 0 degrees? 0. All right, so that's inverse sine. Any questions about inverse sine? So inverse sine is in quadrants 1 and 4. Your answers have to fall between negative pi over 2 and positive pi over 2. So now let's talk about inverse cosine. So for inverse cosine, and again, you don't need to write or draw this graph. It can be written as cosine with that -1, or it could also say arc cosine. Both of those mean inverse. And again, we're asking you for the angle that has the answer. So this is our sine wave. This is what our sine wave looks like. And again, we want to cut it off so that it's 1 to 1. So if I start here and I highlight and I get to the bottom of the wave, that would be right there. So this is where we're going. This is my boundary for cosine. Cosine is shifted a little bit. So my answer should fall between 0 and pi. So this means that the angles for inverse cosine should fall between 0 and pi. What 2 quadrants am I looking in for inverse cosine? What 2 angles go from 0 to pi? Quadrants what? 1 and 2. Now, I personally feel like cosine is a little easier because you don't have to worry about the reflection and changing anything. So take a moment and copy down these 6 questions. I know the numbering is off, but that's okay. And remember, our answer should be from 0, angles between 0 and pi. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to answer all 6 and see what you would come with. So what angle has a cosine of 0? That's what it's asking you. What angle has a cosine of root 3 over 2? So take a moment and see if you can find what your answers would be. I'm gonna put a little timer up. So just write out your 6 answers. What would you write? Looking at your unit circle, what angle between these 2 units, where is cosine 0? Yep, and what's the angle? That's your answer. Always put on that arrow. All right, let's go through our answers. Let's see what we came up with. So these should go a lot faster. So where is cosine? 0 degrees. Where on the unit circle is cosine 0 degrees? Eric, what did you write? Pi over 2. Where, and we already know that if it's positive, I'm looking in quadrant 1. And if the answer is negative, I'm in quadrant 2. So where is cosine positive root 3 over 2? So Sanaya, what would you pick? Pi over 6. Who agrees? All right. Where is cosine root 2 over 2? Augustine, what would you pick? Pi over 4. Now let's go to quadrant 2. Where is cosine negative 1? Anna. Pi. Tamaya, where is cosine negative root 3 over 2? So looking in quadrant 2, where is your x value negative root 3 over 2? Any guesses? You're not sure? That's okay. What did you say was? 5 pi over 6. And last one, where is, David, where is cosine negative 1/2? Nope, that's negative 1/2 cosine. So the x value, where is the x value negative 1/2? 2 pi/3. All right, tomorrow we're going to talk about inverse tangent. So the homework, you can do a lot of the homework today, not all of the homework, but this is homework 6. It does come out the book. So use this time to start working on your homework, and it is due on Tuesday.